Hello, this is Scott, and I've just finished this video, and this is actually going to be a pre-video because I want to explain a phenomena that's going to become evident in the video you're going to watch, which is a continuation of the focus pulsing. And the phenomena that we're going to be looking at, or is going to become evident in this video, is focus breathing. And for those who don't know, focus breathing is something that happens, you only notice it pretty much in video, but as you focus, many lenses will change focal length. So in essence, your enlargement can change. And when we have pulsing, that can kind of give this effect on the size of your image, the frame of your image. And regrettably, my 50mm, my new one, which is what I have on here now, has a lot of breathing to it. I actually did a little clip from when I was using the 35mm, and I took it and split it into a half. You'll see a little black line separating them. On one half, I have the file as it was videoed, and then in the other one I've actually taken it and keyframed and changed the enlargement of the frame on those keyframes to actually try to negate the breathing. It's not perfect. I did this quick just to show that it could be done, but you certainly wouldn't want it to do in a video that has a lot of it going on, but it can happen, and it kind of illustrates the issue, hopefully, to you, so you better understand it. So here you go. And that's bad for cinema, and that's why you might ask the question of, why are cinema lenses so expensive? This is one of the reasons. They painstakingly design them so that there is not focus breathing. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is I start this video off with my 18-55. So what you need to do is basically look at the sides. This would be a good side to look at. And when the camera pulses, see if you notice the framing changing, and that's focus breathing. One of the things that's kind of amazing, interesting, whatever, is that even though these zoom lenses that we get from Fuji are excellent, but they're not necessarily optically not going to have focus breathing, because they're just, it would take a lot to do that. But it seems that they and other manufacturers like Panasonic actually use the fact that they are zooms, and they actually kind of change the zoom as the lens is focusing, which negates the breathing, which technologically pretty amazing. You have to appreciate that. So when you see the 18-55, it's going to appear as though it's not breathing much, if any. But that is a technological achievement, because they're using the fact that it is a zoom to kind of adjust the lens so that it doesn't have the appearance of breathing, which is great. Now, the flip side of that is I have this new 35mm f2 on the camera, and it is a single, it's not a zoom, it's a single focal length, so they can't do that trick. Maybe someday they'll figure out how to do that trick in cameras. So this is Scott, and today I am going to do an extension of my autofocus pulsing tests. I originally used the 18-55 lens at 4.5, which is exactly how I have it set now. I'm letting the ISO go to wherever it's happy, and it says the exposure is correct. But what I have this week is kind of as a sidebar. You may have noticed that the Fuji X-T20 was announced, and I had been contemplating and not investing further until I kind of saw what Canon and what Nikon and everyone had on offer. And they were nice, but I wasn't particularly driven by either the Canon or the Nikon offering. Personally, the Fuji X-T20 on the other hand is hitting all the marks for what I look for in a camera, and I will do kind of a review without the camera to tell you what those things are and why I think it's a really great pick for anybody who wants a hybrid. But that got me to do something, which is invest in another lens, which I had been thinking about but was holding off, and that is the 35 f2. Actually, quite a little jewel of a lens. Let's see if we can get a focus. I just have been loving what little I've done with it. It's really, to me, a very attractive. It's just nice, tiny size. And we're going to switch over to this lens in a second because we're going to do some tests and we're going to look at the effects of aperture and whether that helps with pulsing, because I did some quickie tests and it might just do that. So now let's switch over to that lens. Here we go. I now have the 35mm f2 on my X-T20. We are in a single focus area, and it is roughly, outline it, a box on my face. So it should be a pretty solid area for it to focus on. From here I can see that it is pulsing because I'm seeing the focus breathing. Like I said, if you don't have focus breathing, you would not notice the pulsing quite as much. But since that frame is kind of sitting there doing this, it kind of sticks out. So I can even see it, though the monitor is 4 feet or so away from me. But there you have it. There's 4.5. So in order for us to kind of delve into this, does aperture have anything to do with it? I'm going to go ahead and push this up to like f8 or f11, because my original premise was, hey, if I put it up there, I got tons of depth of field. It doesn't have much reason to go hunting. Now, would it? So let's see. I just pushed it to f8 and it is going absolutely crazy. So that, the theory of more depth of field would be less reason to pulse is not holding up. So without any further ado, let's move on. Let's look at this lens and put it at f2 so that we have as little depth of field and see how that affects this focus pulsing. Okay, here we are. We are now at f2, which is the fastest that this lens will go, and immediately I see it's way better than f8. It looks like it could be better than 4.5, but we'll have to look at it on the computer to see just how much it may have gone away. So this is kind of really interesting because I can definitely tell there is a huge difference, being that the more depth of field there is, it seems to be more of a reason for it to pulse. But let's go look at it on the computer and then I'll come back and we'll discuss it some more. I have it back. I've looked at the images on the computer. I have my 35mm f2 on the camera at f2 because we found that reduced the pulsing the most. So that is really interesting to know. Now again, we shouldn't jump to conclusions that this is strictly higher apertures, lower apertures, however you want to refer to it, reduces pulsing because we're reducing our depth of field. That's not necessarily the case. Maybe the fact that the amount of light is reduced when we're at like f4.5 or f8, that is creating the pulsing. The only way I can really test that is by hopefully adding another light while maintaining the same ISO. Because like I said, I'm letting the ISO go to where it needs to when I set it for f2, f4.5, or f8. So technically, the camera is getting less light as well. So that might be the determining factor. It might not be the aperture so much and the depth of field as it might be the amount of light that the autofocus mechanism or software has to work with. So I will do that test, and then we'll come back and review this again. I have it set again 35 f2 set to f8, and I have at least twice the light on me when light is very close to me, and you can actually see how harsh it is on my face, and that relatively quick pulsing that we experience at f8 with my single light is still here. So obviously it's not just a light issue. There's something about the high apertures, and that increased depth of field actually seems to work against us. So there you have it. Later. As again, hopefully, you know, I learn here and you learn. I did these tests for myself because it was a problem that I was having that wasn't terrible, but it was there and a little bit annoying. Because I'm sure there's people out there who are sitting there going, well, why don't you just put it in manual focus? You're doing video. Put it in manual focus. Real men use manual focus. That's great. If you have somebody to sit there and run the camera and pull focus, then that's great. I don't, and I'm sitting in a situation where I'm going to do things like, you know, lift up a lens and say, you know, here, this is what we're looking at. This is my 18 to 55, 2.8 to whatever it goes to, f4, and it's beautiful. And then I can take it away, and that camera will come back and focus on me again. So I have to put a degree of faith in autofocus. So for all those people who are pointing out the obvious, that's why, and that's why I wanted to explore the autofocus and why I was getting pulsing in the first place. So like I said, we're learning together. I hope this has been beneficial for you and might help some people who have seen focus pulsing themselves and wondering if there was a potential workaround to it. And this at least is giving us an idea of what direction to go in. So hopefully that was helpful. If you liked it, please give me a refocus, thumbs up, focus back to me, and also subscribe